All right, number 3. This is my father. We're talking for the third time now. I think we're going to get a regular thing going. I feel kind of weird saying, hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Life Talk. So I'm not really going to say that anymore because it's just like I find myself becoming a robot. And, as I continue to put these videos out, I want to adapt. But welcome to number 3, Dad.
Oh, thanks for having me again. I enjoy the sessions, talk about some things that are important to us and maybe to other people as well. So yeah, let's do it.
All right. You had said that you wanted to go into, was it meaning and something else?
What is it all about? Which is a philosophical question that goes back to the ages, right? In day one, what is the purpose, the meaning of life? And I'm sure everybody has their own interpretation.
Yeah, sure. I have no fucking clue yet, so let's figure it out.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. We don't have a clue. Why do we have to have a clue? What part of us says that we have to have a purpose? Alan Watts says that it's pretty simple. I think I'm paraphrasing, but apple tree makes apples, and so the human tree makes people. So it peoples. So it's just, isn't it as simple as that? So isn't that our purpose?
Yeah.
Just to be people, just to be. We complicate it when we have to analyze things and put ourselves in certain boxes, put all this pressure on us we got to have this, we have to have a meaning. It's got to be a purpose. There's got to be, otherwise, why do I exist? Why am I here? And we get so locked into the ego, which is really, I think, the purpose comes from the ego, that
when the purpose comes from the ego, it's an act of doing, which is God. You could put yourself through hell for years of I got to do this. What is this? I got to do. But I think your purpose, I think it depends on what place it's coming from. So I think when it's coming from that state of being, as we've talked about over the years, when you're in that state of being, that's where you're not thinking. It's almost, the Bible talks about you have to become, you have to to be born again, right? To go back into yourself, right? To be born again. I've always played with that idea. What does that mean to be born again? People say, I'm a born again Christian. And it was always didn't sit right with me. But now from the context, the way I'm seeing it now is that you have to, and Carl Jung talks about this too, but it's basically you're born as a kid. You have life figured out as a kid in a certain context. Then you become an adult and you lose that childlike wonder, that childlike curiosity of not having it all figured out, and life is kind of play. And then you become an adult, and then to go back into that child mind of wonder and curiosity and not having it all figured out in the vastness, and it becomes integrated with the adulthood, right? Because there's certain aspects of a child that is, there's kind of a carelessness, that so while there's good qualities of a child, there's also the craziness of a child all over the place.
Yeah, and that'll last until the child recognizes that it receives attention or recognition when it acts a certain way, and so it becomes self-conscious as it grows older, and so it loses its naturalness. It loses.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now the child recognizes that in order to get attention, he or she will behave a certain way. And so I think therein starts the beginning of purpose and meaning for that child, and it gradually progresses as we get older and become an adult.
Becomes an identification of a persona.
Yeah, and Carl Jung talks about that too, persona, how we have different personas based on our different roles. So we will have a personality when let's say we're a father or a son, we will behave differently than when we are a customer, let's say, or a
Yeah,
patient, so forth.
it's interesting you say that because I've played with that idea of, you're not going to talk to a cop the same way you're going to talk
Yeah,
to, your
yeah,
mother or, your
right,
friend, your wife.
exactly. Exactly.
But there's a fluidity about it versus like you're a completely different person. So I feel like there's I feel like there can be honesty, there can be integrity versus like in each situation, you're a different person. Like so you play a different role, but at the same time there's integrity behind each one versus like a fakeness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well,
So
yes,
like you can talk to your friend one way and pretend to be somebody you're not versus you talk to your friend one way but it's coming from an integrous um, background versus the opposite of that where it's like a lot of the TV shows, the reality TV shows, they are completely a fake persona. So I guess you can say there's the play of the persona, right? We have different masks, we have friends who we enjoy different things with, right? And that's just how the whole play plays out. But and then there's the fake mask that we wear to cover ourselves.
yeah. Well, it's interesting. Eckhart Tolle um, talks about that in his sessions, and that um, when we're in the state of just being, and we don't get caught up with the roles, basically we'll behave the same, no matter what the situation is. So if we go, let's say, into a restaurant and we are a customer, we we don't change over to being the customer. We remain who we are. It's interesting. Yesterday, I went to the doctor, and I was waiting for the doctor in the examining room to come in. And at that time, I was talking to a nurse because I needed to get some information for Dad, for Grandpa. So I'm on the phone talking, and I'm waiting for the doctor to come in. Now the doctor comes in. I'm on the phone, and what do? I hang up. I hang up on the nurse because I'm so vulnerable, so threatened. Here comes the doctor.
Yeah.
Forget it. I don't want him catching me on the phone talking to somebody else. So I caught myself doing that, and I
Mm.
said, wow, what the heck? Why did I do that? It was so rude to do that to the nurse. And so later I texted the nurse and I apologized for it. But yeah, so how I can switch on to the different roles, and I guess it's really hard to try to maintain that one
You know what?
persona.
What that makes me think of. Like there's a comedian who talks about when you get pulled over. I think it was Dan Cook. His name is Dan Cook. It was back in the day where he says, cop pulls you over, gives you a ticket. The cop comes back to your car and you say thank you. You say thank you, thank you for giving me a ticket. And he does it. I'm not doing him justice, but basically it's like, um, and I think I was talking about too video organic authority versus political authority, and political authority is like I think it's like you play with the roles. Like the roles can be there, but like as Muji says, there's the observer behind it,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Because it's if you have the observer behind it, you can kind of just say like you can you can call out the bullshit, like of
Yeah,
how ridiculous our roles are, but you can still play the roles at the same time.
yeah. So you're kind of you're still separating
You're
yourself.
separated, yeah. So you're like, I'm not the doctor.
Yeah, right.
You're
Yeah,
like, oh, I just play a role of a doctor. That's not who I am. Because
yeah,
if I lose my job, what am I then? And those are the layers that because many people identify that I am my wife, I am my job, I am. Well, if you lose those things, then what's your identity?
yeah. So what's all this about? About this, I think purpose is like overrated in our society. And it's like, our society places such importance on who you are. Uh, they they don't distinguish between the self and the role or the job that you do. The job that you do is who you are in our society. So, if you go to let's say you go to a social, you go to a party, you go to somebody's house, or maybe you meet somebody for the first time. One of the key questions they ask you is, well, what do you do for a living? You know, well, why does that become so important? What do you do? What are you? I mean, you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, so that and then you're immediately judged. So if you're a plumber, or let's say you're a sanitation man or whatever, all of a sudden now you're going to be judged based on who you are. So there's quite a
You're gonna make me. I want to show you this. This is actually really cool.
how much significance is placed on that in our society.
So check this out. So there's someone by the name of Simon Sinek, and he talks about exactly what you're saying right now. I'm going to share my screen so you can see. I don't know if it's going to be able to. I'm still learning Zoom, so I don't know if it's going to show on the other end. But if it doesn't, it's look up The Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. And can you see it on your end now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is the outer circle, which is the what. What do you do?
Yeah.
Right. So going deeper in, the many people are the what people, and
Right.
then you meet people are the how people. They say, how do you do what you do? Specific actions taken to realize the why, and then the why is the root. What is your cause? What do you believe? So
Yeah.
and yeah, the why is within everybody when those layers are brought out. But unfortunately, many people die in the what. What do you do? What do you do? And you become a robot if you just live in the what. Because those who are in each inner circle still have, as you progress deeper inside, you still have a what if you have a why. In other words, when you know your why, you still do what. You still, but each layer is just more meaning to what you do.
Yeah, exactly. So it's again, it's because I think it's because of the environment that we find ourselves in, that what you do becomes paramount to who you really are as a person. Who you are. And I I don't think many people really are taking the time to really take a look at themselves and self-examination as to who they really are, as opposed to what they do. Because what you do changes. Who you are doesn't change. Your essence doesn't change. It didn't change. It's the same as when you were born, and your essence will be the same as when you die. But most of us won't see that and won't recognize it and get to appreciate that.
And that's what I think God is. Jordan Peterson has a thing that he says, when people ask him, do you believe in God? His response is, well, what do you mean by God?
Yeah.
So, and what Christ said is that the kingdom of heaven is within us. So that essence is within us. And that's seems to be the problem, is that, like I said earlier, and I'm learning in my own experience, you have to work out your own salvation. You have all the answers within you. But we live in a society, the same thing, like where you were talking about the example of the doctor. A doctor walks in, it's
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. Thank you for the ticket, officer. Thank you. Thank you for protecting me from myself.
Eckhart Tolle is also talks about this quite a bit. This idea of purpose, and he says that our ego likes to have a so-called purpose, and he says that it's good to have a purpose and to have to do work that kind of reflects your persona, your personality. And nothing wrong with that. He said, but the real purpose is to be present to whatever you do. whether it's your job, whether it's just sitting down listening to music, is to really be present and appreciate the now, because that's really where life is. And if you take a look at, again, the purpose is to become a doctor. The purpose is to become whatever. Well, the purpose is out there. It's in the future. And so, you're never going to really get to the state that you would, really enjoy if you were totally present. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say in a clumsy way is that when you're truly present, you're in the now. There is like a peace is that you lose the sense of time, and that's what consciousness is about. And it's as close to consciousness that we're going to get in this world. So. And we kind of tear everything. We want to tear everything. We want to analyze things. When we look, I have a flower, a beautiful flower here, and Eckhart Tolle say, well, we could either look at the flower and enjoy its beauty, its the scent that it gives off, or we can analyze it. We say, okay, this is a flower, and this is the name, and this kind of flower has leaves, and it has certain stems, and it only comes out in the spring, and we analyze it so to the point that we don't even see the flower.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good comparison, is we don't even see our life that's unfolding right in front of us.
Listening, but not hearing.
Chasing that purpose. Huh?
Listening, but not hearing.
Yeah, right. Listening, but not hearing. Looking, but not seeing. That's, man. And I talk about this, and I have a hard time. I struggle with it. I catch myself. My mind is like all over the place, and taking me about, I got to do my taxes, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. And as I'm doing my taxes, I can't even be present about doing my taxes, because now I'm thinking about, I have to pay a bill, or I have to go do something else. But to be totally present, no matter what it is, that's the purpose. That's it. Be people and being. We talk about that. It's almost a cliche, right? Human being instead of human doing. That's the purpose. That's it. No, we got to complicate it, because we got to do great things when we're only capable of doing little things, but little things with love. That's Mother Teresa said. That's paraphrasing what she said.
Yeah, Muji calls it the monkey mind. The monkey mind. It's just.
Yeah. So we kind of just complicate it again. It's the old ego. It gets hard to shake it. It's just really hard to shake.
I was trying to find a picture to explain. David Hawkins. There's a David Hawkins video out there somewhere, and he says the insanity of it. It's the monkey is on. There's the monkey is putting his arms through the cage to get out, and he's fighting to get out, not realizing that the cage, the door is open on the other side, but he's on the one side fighting to get out of the cage. So it's open here. He's on this side fighting to get out of the cage, and he's locked in, not realizing all he has to do is just go the other way.
Right. So, yeah.
Because it's so simple. It's so simple. Being present is simple. The mind cannot handle that simplicity. What are you, crazy?
But if you, and this is why meditation is good, but meditation is not the same as what I'm talking about. Meditation could be another thing to do.
Yes. I'm meditating.
Yeah, like, leave me alone. I'm meditating now.
Yeah.
Just
your life becomes a meditation.
Minutes. Huh?
Your life becomes a meditation.
Yeah, so you can't even meditate. You can't even meditate effectively, which is to be in that present moment for a couple of minutes, 3 minutes.
And I think the more analogies are really good. It can be said, try to go to sleep. You need to try to go to sleep.
Right.
Try to go to sleep.
Right. Now, once you do that, it's all over. That's right. No, well, that's what. But why is it so difficult for us to let go? Because it requires letting go. That's just a whole other concept, right? Which we hear all about all the time. Why is it so difficult for us to just let go and let be? Look, our body. We have to, you know, um, our body takes care of itself. Our
I
heart
think,
beats.
I mean, me, I've always been a deep thinker, obviously. I think one of the reasons why we're afraid to let go is we're afraid of death, because I'm looking at the root motivations. And I think Carl Jung says people don't find God because they do not look low enough. So really, if you don't get to the core of your motivations for living, you're not living. So the core to me, in my days of depression and anxiety and um uh it's yeah, it's the fear of death, because which is the fear of the unknown, because what happens when you die? It's unknown. So we cling to life. And there's a quote, he who has any why can bear any how. So when you have that reason for why you live, which you have to know what is worth living for, which you have to know what is worth dying for, and playing with that idea for, and I,
Isn't that a prescription? Like here, you just laid out a theory of a prescription. Okay, once I've got that prescription in place, okay, now I can go about it. Okay, that's cool. Now I know what it's about. I can go on living.
yeah.
Well,
That's the problem, is that um, it can only be found within yourself. That's the thing, because I can read all these books, They don't have the answer. They may
right.
lead me to go within myself. They're tools. These are all tools. So, but life really is the teacher. It's like, I get it.
But
It's
like
and
life is really such a mystery. Why are we searching for an answer? Why can't we accept that it is a mystery and that we don't have the answer? Why can't we let it go to as that and then enjoy living?
Yeah, I think paradoxically, I think if we didn't have that seeking the answer mind, we wouldn't realize how simple it is.
Yeah, yeah. We
Because you
and
have to seek, in a sense, to realize how ridiculous it is.
yeah, when you're on your deathbed and you only it's just a matter of time. Maybe you kind of come to realize that you become conscious, come to realize that it's a joke.
Yeah.
Alan Watts says it.
The laughing Buddha.
Not the Joker. It's a joke. Life is a joke. What the hell are we taking it so seriously for? We have no control coming into the world. We have no control going out, and yet we worry. We worry ourselves to death in between. Yeah, so we have this fear, this worry that hangs over us all the time. And how much control do we have in it? I mean, what does
Yeah, and
worry?
that's
What does worry do? What does worrying really do? I think people worry. I think I have a theory that people worry because they feel that if they don't worry, that something that they're worrying about will come about. So when the situation does not come about, which most of the time it doesn't,
mhm.
they believe that it was because they were worrying. You follow what I'm trying to say? In other words, if I didn't worry, then that what I was worrying about is going to happen. In other words, rather than letting it
Yeah.
go, you follow?
Yes,
This
I
is
do. It's Alan Watts gives the example of it's I think it was Alan Watts. The plane's going down and you're holding tight onto the seatbelt.
yeah. What's the point? What's the point? How many times were like with you growing up? I said, send me a text when you get home because I worry. You get home safe. You know, and you say, Dad, don't worry, don't worry. But I worry. I worry until you get home. Then you get home. Sometimes you don't send me the text. Now I'm going crazy. But
Yeah.
what is that really doing? Okay, but then finally you'll hook up and say, okay, Dad, I'm fine. I didn't see. I didn't see that you were texting me. So now, subconsciously, I'm thinking, well, it's a good thing I worry because he's okay now. You
Yeah,
follow.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I could, same thing with me. I mean, with all the shit that's going on in the world right now. God, you tune into the frequency of the TV. It's like
Yeah. And
the end of the world. We're all going to die, and
to your point, I mean, the media has really distorted reality
yeah,
so much. I've come to recognize that more and more lately. How distorted the picture is. Everything is bad. Fire in Patterson, robbery in Newark, and it's the same old song. It's almost like it's pre-taped.
yeah. It puts a yeah, yeah, and it puts us into fight or flight. Um, So then
Yeah,
you have basically half the country who wants to fight and half the country who wants to run away. And it's no wonder because, like Einstein said, uh, you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. So
right.
we're fight or flight is here, love is here, and love is not. Love is you can't. It's similar to what we're talking about. It's a state of being. It's the ability to say, oh, I see the fight mind and I see the flight mind. I have
Yeah,
compassion. And that's the ironic part about the ego. The more you fight the ego, you actually make it bigger. So that's why what I think is necessary to look at the ego and say, okay, you're trying to protect me.
right,
It's okay. I see you. And
right.
that's why I've been really talking about the problems that I've had in my life that I've run away from and have from shame and guilt rather than to look at them. There's something called the Heisenberg principle, which is if you and this is from David Hawkins, if you eat 30 cookies, let's say you eat too many cookies, you're the guy who just eats way too many cookies. So instead of focusing on how bad you are for breaking a diet, you say, okay, let's take a look at this. So today I ate 30 cookies. It's a lot of cookies. Tomorrow, I ate 50 cookies. I ate 50 cookies. So you write down 50 cookies. And then what you do is instead of saying, oh my God, I broke my diet and going into the guilt oscillation mind, you say, okay, let's take a look at you. Why do I want the cookies? In what moments most do I really want those cookies? And how do I feel after I eat those cookies? And then you just keep writing it down. Okay, today I have 40 cookies. Today I had 60 cookies. I ate the cookies really a lot in this moment. I ate the cookies a lot in this moment. I felt guilt in this moment. I felt desire in this moment. How are they connected? And then when you dissect it, you naturally collapse it. But when you fight it, you say, I should not be eating that many cookies. Then you don't have any cookies for 6 months. You say, I did it, and then you eat 5,000 cookies in one day. So because that's how crazy we are. It's this, guilt shame world, and it goes and it's reflective in our society too. It just either you're a monk or you're completely all over the place.
Yeah,
So it's repression or complete expression. And it's like, and then the repression people will fight the expression people, or another way could say that the introversion people cannot be with the extroversion people. And I've experienced the part of my life where I was completely extroverted, and I've experienced a part of my life where we're completely introverted. And I would surround people like-minded, not realizing that we're all introverted and extroverted at different parts of our lives that we navigate in different ways. And at the core, we're neither of those
yeah.
things. We're
It's
not,
like another label, like the
yeah,
ADD label, right? The
yep.
ADD labels that we put on people. Yeah, so that's not reality. Again, it's putting us in a box. But wasn't Richard Dawkins the one that wrote the book Letting Go?
I'm not sure.
No,
Let me see.
but it was not the book that you gave me recently.
Oh, that's from no, that's David Hawkins.
David Hawkins, yeah, he wrote a whole book on the whole thing,
Yeah.
letting go, and letting go, and basically letting be. And I think what really prevents us from letting go is again not being conscious. And well, and why is that? Well, it's because our mind generates all these constant thoughts, barrage with thoughts. And now we We can't get rid of the thoughts. Emoji would be the first one to say. But the problem is that we entertain the thoughts rather than just letting them go. The mind tends to control us rather than just, you know what? That's what the mind does. It generates thoughts. Okay, so you let it go, and you just will entertain or give attention to thoughts that matter.
Yeah. So this here, can you see it on your screen?
Yeah.
For people who aren't, again, I have to see if it shows for other people, but it's the chart of consciousness. On the bottom level is force. This is the ego. It's the ego mind.
Right.
And then the top is power, and in the near the middle is courage and neutrality. But how you like the emotions that you feel are necessary in order to get you to the next level. On the bottom is guilt, shame, victimhood. On the top is pride. And as you rise, there's an emotion behind each of those. So when you're in a state of anger, it's an emotion. Like, I just like looking at this because it's like the life view too, depending on how when you're around a guilty, shameful victimhood, their life view sees, for example, God as this God, the judge in the sky, who's
Right.
watching everything they do. And no, that's just a reflection of themselves. So, and at the top, the life view is, which you could say it is what it is. You don't put a label on it. It's not good, or
Yeah.
you're not looking good or bad. Whereas
Right.
force is really, it's a place of good or bad. It's duality. So when you start saying things like, it is what it is, or, uh, for example, courage and neutrality. I mean, how do you define, what is the logic behind running into, like, I always think of World War II, the scene of like breach of Normandy, where these people are running into the line of fire. Like, throughout history, what does it take for someone to run into fire, to the line of fire?
Hmm.
What does it take, like the idea of a soldier to just to embrace death, but not seek it? He's not, of course, nobody wants to die, but what kind of character? That doesn't make sense. But that transcends the ego mind. The ego mind is, see, at the top of the ego mind is pride, right? Prideful. And when people are prideful or they're confident, it's a false illusion of confidence. People who are not confident in themselves will follow the prideful people. And you see it now in politicians, right? They can say all the beautiful things. They're very prideful, right? But when push comes to shove, they don't do anything.
Yeah, and it's like when I look at this chart, I think that where it says force on the bottom, really based on control or wanting to be in control. Uh, Whereas the real power comes from up on top there, the green area. The real power comes from letting go. That's what I see.
Yeah.
So the more we try to force, we're forcing it when we want to be in control, and it just winds up with all the negative emotions that you're showing here: hate, craving, anxiety, regret, despair, blame, as opposed to bliss, serenity, reverence, understanding, forgiveness, optimism. These are all good
Yeah.
emotions.
And what's interesting too, from my experience, the courage part came from me looking at all of those feelings that I've experienced, right? And looking at it from a higher perspective. So yeah, I've experienced shame, I've experienced guilt, I've experienced apathy, I've experienced grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. And I'm at a point now where it's like, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with those things. I'm still gonna feel hate again. I'm still gonna feel shame again. And when I do, it's like I change my relationship with those things, right? Like desire. Okay, well, why am I desiring what I'm desiring? So it's the why into things, which goes back to your point too, where you were talking earlier about, people say, oh, well, what do you do? Well, it's to an extent, we're been victims of this world of you got to be doing something, right? So
Yeah,
their parents told them, you got to be something, you make something
you
of
got to
yourself.
make, you got to produce, you got to
Yeah.
produce. What about producing?
Which,
It's all about production and not
which,
consuming.
yeah,
What
which
about,
ironically is true. When you know your why, you actually produce
yeah,
without thinking about it because you're doing what you love. So you naturally are producing versus forcing produce.
yeah, yeah.
Which,
Well, our, in our society, the capitalistic society, it's all about production is what it's all about. If you're not a producing person, and you're not effective. You're not worthwhile. Everything is measured in terms of production in our capitalistic society, and as opposed to uh, consideration to the humanistic side of it. There's not much humanistic side to capitalism. So, but the power is to, I believe, is really in accepting, the Serenity
well,
Prayer.
real quick, I
I
wanted
love
to
the
touch on that.
Serenity
Yeah, I
Prayer.
do. I love that.
The Serenity Prayer
But
really sums it all up.
I just want to talk about what you just said, though, the capitalism. I want to challenge the idea of it because I think the language of language is so limited because I would argue that capitalism is a good thing. It depends on where you're coming from out of it, right? So, for example, if somebody starts a company and they have, employees and they're, what is the company's mission statement, right? What is the company's mission statement? If the mission statement and the belief in the mission statement um, is really that if if you're saying capitalism from the bottom line principle, I would agree. We have to make money, and that's all it's about. Then I
Yeah,
would agree with you. But I would say that there are also a lot of people who are business owners who really they started from scratch and they built something that is actually
beneficial to everyone.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
because the alternative too, I don't believe in too, like the idea of communism. Well, communism sounds good, right? But it is so again, I guess you can say too, it's communism and capitalism are just two sides of the same coin. And we as a
right,
collective have to think higher, right? Because listen, the illusion that the government is going to save everybody is an illusion.
right.
The illusion that a select few people are going to give you utopia is a reality that's, I think, occurring right now. And um, there's an idea of capitalism that I really enjoy. And I also understand, like, I'm really looking at things from an objective viewpoint where it's like, um, everyone who's rich is not bad.
Right.
There are good people who are rich who it depends on what they do with the energy, their money, which is currency. It's energy. It's literally currency, energy. Um, there's some people who are capitalists who money comes to them and they give back. They come to them, they give back. But I think success leaves clues, and we shouldn't just dismiss somebody just because they're successful. But that there are people who are rich who have gotten it through uh, deceitful ways and greedy ways, and I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah, and it's, I always say that, you know, if you don't like capitalism, well, what's a
Yes.
better
See,
what's a better system?
that's the thing. That's a good point because you ask to somebody who says they don't like capital, like we have to collectively come up with the next level
Right.
because communism is not the answer. Government will promise all these things, and then nothing in life comes free is a very true statement that has been passed down.
Yeah, I guess part of my what do you call it, disappointment with the capitalistic uh, setup is the formation of a corporation, and which basically is a myth. I mean, so many people work for this myth who really doesn't care about. No, I'm saying this in general now. Doesn't really care about employees, and they're not. The corporation is not designed to care about its employees, and it's such a cold uh, way to manage a business, to care for employees. You know, I think the employees are probably the most important part of a successful corporation. And yet we make the customer first, right? Like customer comes first, but really it's the employees, in my mind, that come first.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, like in a clumsy way, is that, yeah, I have difficulty with this this myth that we deal with, that really doesn't have a heart, doesn't really care, and it's just it's the mission is to produce and make a profit, not to uh, benefit the employees that basically make up the corporation, um, take care of the the stakeholders, all of the stakeholders, which is the employees, the customers, and the suppliers. Those should be really what's important, not making a profit, uh, not making more. We need to make more. The quote is always, you take a look at the corporations now. I mean, you used to be able to go buy a bottle of Coca-Cola, you know, and now you go to the supermarket. It's okay. You want Coke? Do you want Diet Coke? You want zero sugar Coke? You want cherry Coke? All these different products. Why? Because we got to meet and beat the last quarter's quota. So it's all about this production. And it's not about caring for the employees, which in many cases now, people are not even making $15 an hour. How do you live on $12, $13
Oh,
an
that's a
hour?
whole other
Crazy.
debate. This is going to be interesting. I'm listening to both sides of that debate, and it seems one side is. I actually just listened to Patrick Bet David, who has a podcast called Valuetainment, and he talks about the problem with the $15 an hour is that companies like Walmart can afford it, and the small business guys who become forced to pay their employees $15 an hour end up going out of business. So on the bigger scheme of things, that it ends up benefiting the big corporations who can afford it, who can afford the $15 an hour because of all their profit margins, and the little guy who, it ends up, and what they do is that they play on the appeal, right? Of course, who wouldn't want to hire minimum wage rather than really thinking outside the box? What is the best minimum wage? And I think the whole idea of minimum wage is, I get it on a surface level, and I think we have to think deeper about it, because on a surface level, yes, of course, people deserve a living wage, right? But the problem is, I think it's a deeper problem. I think it's again, it's another dualistic standpoint, right? Because when you have people saying minimum wage is not good, we need to listen to those people, and we need to listen to the alternate side too, right? But these are just two paradigms parroting back and forth. I think what's more important is that we need to get back into our creative energy. We have to get back into what are we creating, and that we're responsible. That where are we spending our money? Like, are we spending our money on big corporations because we're trying to get the cheapest thing? And it's understandable why we want to save money, but um, where you spend your money will create, like, do you believe in Walmart and Amazon's principles? Do you believe in the corporate, like, we people like to complain about corporations and then they spend their money on corporations?
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, what is the corporation really doing for the employees? Um, Not designed to do anything. So the
Yeah.
expectation shouldn't be there. So yeah, it should be $12 an hour in the eyes of the corporation. But in the eyes of doing the right thing, which probably you'll see more, you'll see that happen more often with small business. Small entrepreneurs will take care of their employees, will make them part of like a family situation, and won't dismiss them or fire them when things get a little rough. You take a look at whenever when sales start to drop, profits start to decline, the first things that not always, it's not black and white, but many times a corporation will let go of their employees. You take a look at the auto makers, layoffs, 40, 50,000 people, lay them off. Now you could argue, well, I guess in order for them to continue to be in business, they have to let people go. But it certainly shows where the priority is.
You know what? On a deeper perspective, though, when these people when the universe, it depends. Like it's like the Chinese farmer analogy. When these people get laid off, they lose their jobs. What is it? Einstein says that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
So, like in these moments where people lose their jobs, like to your point, when these corporations, when it's about the bottom line, I think that's where the hunger in a society begins to like, we can create something better. So all these institutions, these corporate, like when you get laid off from one of these corporations, it's almost a blessing in disguise if you look at it the right way. And I'm not saying it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy by any means.
Because you get away from the trappings of the corporation.
Yes, if you can see it in the right lens, and because when for me, like it's in those bottom moments when you lose everything that becomes the opportunity to grow from those experiences and replace the system. You know, like for example, like another example would be everybody wants to blame X, Y, or Z. It's that politician. It's that guy. If only that girl was different. And they sit in their homes and they eat popcorn all day and they want to cast all their blame on a person. As if, I mean, the insanity of that is as if you have all cells in your body, right? And one cell on one part of your body said, you know what, that cell in the foot, I don't like that cell. If that cell, imagine your whole cell, all the cells in your body are focusing on what the one cell in your foot is doing. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
So, but that's how crazy we are. So what I'm saying is that Walmart, Amazon, all these companies, all these big corporations, which is built into it, it's built into the model. So it's hate the sin, not the sinner, right? So because we're all collectively responsible for how we spend our money and all that, it's our responsibility. How are we responding? What are we building on an individual level and going out from there, right? Because these politicians are going to do the politicians and the corporations are going to reflect the people. If you have dumb, ignorant people, which I would argue I've been, I kind of just sit my life, not living to my full potential. I'm going to have dumb, ignorant politicians. We're going to have dumb, ignorant corporations. So it's up to people to hold politicians accountable. It's up to people to, if they don't like a politician, be a better person, be the person you want to be, the change you want to see in the world, but actually, right? Because for most of my life, I've used that as a cute little quote, be the change you want to see. So what people need to be the change they want to see, because when you're being the change, then you're not focused on the corporations. You're not focused. You're giving all your energy to what you're creating and how you're contributing, that you don't even have time to focus on all that. So
I would argue that a successful corporation is a corporation that really understands.
Yeah, I agree.
And the priority has to be, in my opinion, with the employees. Because if you treat your employees right,
you've said that over the years. It's so true.
And if they treat the customers right, you're going to be successful. But it's real. See, it's a paradox. It was how can a corporation, which is a myth, how can you expect a corporation, which is a myth, to really do that? To really care for the employees, to make the employees right, when their purpose, corporation's purpose, is to make a profit. It's a conflict, and usually the conflict gives way to making the profit.
You know what's interesting?
So what happens is the employees suffer, the quality of the products suffer, and this myth can still become successful. It's I think that's the dilemma. That's the dilemma. I don't know how you fix it.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing too. We talked about at the beginning. How do you fix it, right? Like, what do you have to do? It's more of a like seeing it from a different perspective. Like, when I worked at LA Fitness, for example, and this is just my perspective of it. It was very different. And I feel like what makes a good business, a good corporation, is exactly what you're saying. They put the employee first, the value first, and generally that's how a business grows. But then over time, it becomes about the money. And generally speaking, when it becomes about the money, these corporations end up collapsing.
Yeah, because it's like a panic. They get into panic mode. All of a sudden, the sales are off, the profits are off. Forget about the employees now. What's most important is it's the survival of the corporation. And again, what is the corporation? What are we trying to survive? What are we trying to keep alive? a myth,
Yeah.
a freaking myth. So it's kind of like, it's like an illusion. And so it's hard. It's hard. You know, years ago, many years ago, before your time, like you'd have companies like IBM. They were dedicated to their employees. They really did. Uh, really supported their employees and really stuck with them. Good times, bad times. There was a loyalty to the employee, and the employee was loyal to the corporation. Not anymore. I think employees realize that, you know, they're not going to be loyal to a company that's not loyal to them. And so, you know, this idea that I've always mentioned is the loyalty, it becomes I Inc. So each man for himself and each corporation for itself.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I think is your thing.
Yeah,
It's good. It's
interesting, interesting situation. But this is what, you know, this is what makes our, you know, this is what makes the country grow. And there are good aspects to it. So, you know, we've developed a lot of good products and services over time that have benefited the general public. And so there are, you know, there are good
yeah, because
points
what's
to that.
interesting is too is what I kind of like is the idea of a system that you can sit on your ass and do nothing, and you can you will receive the fruits of that, right? So to me, kind of the perfect system is you get what you put in, right? So like if you sit on your ass all day, you really shouldn't get that much.
Hmm.
But if you push it, and the problem also becomes it's also subjective, right? So who decides what is value? And I think that's to that chart before. It's getting into that power. It's like a universal. It's like when you're around people who are really contributing
Yeah.
from their soul, from
That's the
their
big, and I think that's really, I think, in all fairness, I think the typical human being doesn't have to be prodded, doesn't have to be pushed. If that human being is, you know, is a conscious, good person that really typically will want to do good. It's innate. I think it's
yeah.
innate in most human beings to want to do well, to want to make a good product.
Well, one size doesn't fit all, too. I think some people do need to be prodded. Like I would fit in that category. Is for sit in my ass. I lack discipline, so
Yeah,
you know
but what that's like for you? What's that like for you though when you're in that state?
with what?
Is that would that be a comfortable state to be in where you need to be prodded? And why
No,
you need to be
no.
prodded?
What I'm saying is that what, and this could open up a whole other conversation with like masculinity too, right? Like, I think what I'm getting at is that a one size doesn't fit all. Like
Hmm.
some people need to be prodded, and other
Hmm.
people, and it's who's to say in what situation. That goes back into the being state, right? When somebody needs a slap in the face, and when somebody else needs a hug, right? Because sometimes somebody just needs a hug. They need to be loved. They need to be appreciated for where they're
Like
at.
on a team, like in a basketball team or a baseball team,
Yeah, you need to
coach would
be,
have to treat each player
and
differently. Yeah.
yeah, and I think there's the idea of competition and cooperation, right? They're both necessary because if you spark competition in somebody, that can actually really get them to I'm gonna get in there and win. But cooperation is also just as important.
Right.
So, but both of those things together is what makes sports enjoyable, right? It's the idea of seeing a team how they can cooperate together and how they work together, but also how they competing against,
Right.
but not about, that's what makes I think a good sportsmanship, right? Where it's not about beating, the other. It's almost like a learning experience on both ends.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah. The competition could be good in that it can help you be better. You
Yeah,
know, so it's it's about not fighting an enemy. It's respecting the enemy that he, he's really helping you become a better person or better. You're better at your sport or better at whatever
yeah.
you're doing.
We can compete ideas here, right? Like one of the reasons why I made this is because I want to learn. I want people to call out my bullshit. I want to have a competition of ideas. I want to challenge
Yeah,
other people's
yeah,
views, and I want them to challenge mine. And it's a
yeah,
form of competition, but
yeah. That's good competition.
it's good competition. Yeah.
Like me, I'm playing. I started playing chess, for example, right? And I'm getting a little bit better. So I'm on a social chess game.
Do you play people or do you play
Huh?
computers? Do you play people or computers?
No, I play people
Yeah.
on social. Yeah, it's so cool. So, and you can keep playing the same people, or you can play different people. But when you start to get better, you want to play with people that are a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
So otherwise, if you keep playing with people that are below your ability, they're not going to help you get better, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That competition can be good.
Yeah. But if yeah, and the problem becomes is like I have to beat the like it
Yeah,
becomes
yeah, right. That's where competition's bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes then you end up like versus it's how you see it, right? It's versus a growing process. Like I want to beat this person, and then it's like when you lose to that person, you can say I really appreciate losing to you, because maybe you could I can learn from you,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've
because
got
then it shifts it. It's the
right.
competition becomes play.
Right, yeah, I've gotten that. Like I'm playing this one person. He's kind of my age, and so I beat him the other day, and he said, "Hey, that was good. You made me run for the money. Yeah, that was appreciated. It was like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was good. It was good
yeah.
competition, and vice versa. The same thing with him. Oh, I didn't see that coming. He ate my queen up like that. Yeah, good stuff. All right, so
That could be a place we can stop there. I've
yeah,
been
so
saying to you too. I've been putting it off, but I think chess is definitely a good game. In a world of checkers, play chess.
oh, definitely. I reached out to you a couple of times, man. Try take me up on it.
Yeah,
You'll enjoy it.
maybe we can go into how to play chess for people who don't know how to play. Maybe we can spend one of our episodes doing talking about chess.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool because it reflects what life is in many ways.
Yeah, very true. Well, I guess we'll
Right.
stop there. I'll stop.
Good. Yeah, enjoyed it, Michael. Thank you again.
Likewise.